Hello, I'm Dale Petron. I've decided to do a video that's a little different than usual because I've been working with my TX200 Mk III to see how it would shoot for 50 yards. The range has been pretty busy, and so it's hard to get on interrupted time out there where I can actually have a shooting camera and make it work. So I've got some footage that I'll be showing various parts of the setup as we go along, and I'm going to walk us through the targets over a 2-day period of shooting at the 50 yards. Both days the wind was about 0 to 7 miles an hour, shifting both from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock irregularly. The wind wasn't much of an impact on either day, but just to be fully transparent with that process. The rifle rig is a TX200 Mk III. It's got a Vortek Diamondback 6x24. I'm shooting AA field heavy 10.3s. The targets are designed to have a 1-inch bull, which is about the size of a quarter. You see a quarter can be placed right on it. Quarter slightly smaller, but about that size. And each ring represents a 1/2 inch larger. So 1.5 inches is a 9, 2 inches is an 8, 2.5 is a 7, 3 inches is 6, etc. as you go through that particular part of the process. And so that's how these particular targets are set up. Again, I shot over 2 days with this process. I shot off a bench, and I shot off of an arrest. The rest is set up with a very soft bag and a slider, and I'll be running some B footage here to kind of show you what that looks like. And the targets are set up at 50 yards, and I have a video of walking down to the targets to show those both being set up as well as having been shot. I will have some version of that tape here as well, so you can get a sense of what it's like to walk down and back and how far that is and what it looks like, that kind of a thing. Let's take a look at the targets. On day 1, I had made some modifications to the rifle. I had taken it apart and added one particular power washer from Vortek into it in front of the top hat, which is supposed to make the gun shoot a little smoother or a little better with heavier pellets. As I'm shooting 10.3s, which are considered heavier for the 177 caliber pellet, I put that in to see how it would do, and it seems to be working pretty well for me. This was the first time at the range. I had taken it out the night before and shot it at 50 feet to get it centered and make sure I was going to be on paper and start with that particular part of the process so that I wasn't totally lost in the whole game when I came out. So after I set up and went and shot the first set of targets, or the first 5, which are right here, as you can see, all but one are under a quarter. All but one are under a quarter, and I'm pretty sure I pulled that. I was just looking for a rough center to see where I needed to go. I brought it around and shot the second set of 5, easily under a quarter again. Putting groups of 5 under a quarter is pretty easy in many ways with this rifle, so not a particularly great feat, but groups of 10 under a quarter are a lot trickier. So I had my rough dial in, and so then I needed to use I needed to set up the gun for a more precise dial in, and so what I did with the next shot, the top target, and you can see for the most part all but a couple are covered by a quarter, so roughly an inch. And down here we have the majority again covered by a quarter. There's 3 outside that at this point, but that told me I was close enough to begin kind of shooting in the process. Now I get a little fatigued if I do this too long, so I shot 2 sets of 3 targets. The right hand side in each case will be the sighter, and then 2 for score. So this was my sighter after that target, and I felt like I had it dialed in pretty closely, and so then I moved to this particular target where I scored a 90 with 2 X's. And again, we see the majority of them kind of falling right in there, about half, and then for some reason I had one group that fell low. I was having trouble with my consistency of my trigger pull and grip, and so some of that issue that you see there is just me as the shooter kind of coming through in this particular target. The second target I shot is largely covered all but one by a quarter, so easily under an inch, and it was a little high, but it was a 96 with 2 X's, so it did pretty well. So essentially what we see from this at this point is I'm easily maintaining about an inch for groups with this rifle if I do my part. The second target, I was getting tired, the wind was coming up, I had 2 sighters, and then went to town. The majority, of course, are right in the 10 ring, and easily covered by a quarter with 2 outside. Score was 95 out of 5X. Now, I'm not shooting for group size for the most part, I'm shooting for score, so bear that in mind. Here we see that I didn't do as well. I was getting tired, and like I say, the wind had come up a fair bit, and so you see more horizontal spread than what we've seen in the other targets. And here, essentially, they were within about 2 inches easily, but it just wasn't as good a group as what we would see on the other ones. So then I went home and cleaned up and got things ready and came back then the next day to shoot. And so I set up, because the wind was different, etc., etc., the gun had sat overnight. I started off by shooting the sighters. The sighters are here, so we see this, and then I brought it in and figured that was close enough for this particular process. This is going to turn out to be the best target 20 shot group in terms of score that I have done thus far. Easily covered for the most part, except for a couple by a quarter, so easily under an inch. And the first target was a 97 with everything touching the ring, except there was an 8 and a 9 that got away from me. Same with that second target. Essentially everything is under that 1 inch or at 1 inch, and we've got a couple that are 1 off. So that one was 98 for a total card of 195. The second target of the day, I didn't shoot the sighters because I figured I had those nailed down fairly well, and I was struggling with my grip on this one. And so we see, while many of them were right in the center, those were the later ones. The earlier ones were off a little bit, and what we see is 4 shots outside of that 1 inch and 6 shots easily under that inch. Score was 93 and 4 X's. And here we see the same basic premise, but my grip was a little weak. This was the weakest group, or weakest target of the day. I had one, in fact, that was way out at the 7 ring, well, 2, so it wasn't a great set of targets for me. The last set of targets for the day, again, I didn't shoot the sighters. I figured I was pretty close after dialing in on the last 2. The first target was a 94, second was a 93. The majority of them, except for 2, are under a quarter again. Got the score, 3 X's, 94. Here we had a 93 with 1 X. The group was a little up to the left. I'm not sure that's likely me. The majority, again, kind of within that quarter. I have no idea why this one ended up here. It just did what it did, and I have no explanation for it. So my TX in sum shoots pretty well at this point, and I'm pretty happy with it at 50 yards. I'm easily able to stay right around an inch or under, a little over on occasion with 10-shot groups, but with 5-shot groups easily under an inch for the most part. As you can see, a great number of those are in the 10 ring, which is a half an inch, and so it isn't uncommon for that rifle in its current configuration to be able to shoot 5 shots in a 1/2 inch group at 50 yards. Now, will it do it every time? No, it does it probably once every 10 or 12 groups, maybe 15, but it can do it now in its current configuration. Now, note that the pellets are all weighted sorted. The AA field heavies come in 10.3, and I sort to the nearest tenth of a grain. So in this particular case, these all weighed 10.4 grains. There are times I also lubricate them. I did not lubricate this particular group. When I do so, I use a beeswax polish that is available from Amazon to lubricate them. That seems to help some, but I have not done it here. This is a good set of information in terms of helping me practice for some of my rimfire shooting as well. I shoot 22 long rifle rimfire at 100 yards, and so this duplicates that process fairly closely. In any case, if there's any questions, please feel free to let me know, and I'll have some B-roll either after or during this to kind of show you the various elements of the range and the process. Let me know if there's any questions. Thank you.